stuttering with their video, or is that me just by myself?
No, that was Tercia. She's got a connection problem. Let me try. Speak, Tercia. Let's see if I can make you work better. Speak. Oh, dear.
The audio's gone.
See, this is God getting angry. It's Dave's fault. He said, "And
Sorry.
Speak again, Tercia.
I was there 3 million years ago. Let me start showing my presence."
Tercia, speak again. I've fiddled you a bit. Let's see. Oh, she's gone. Speak.
Yeah, let me just close that.
No, we can't hear you now. Tercia, can you
she's
speak?
She won't be able to hear you then if she.
No. Maybe I should boot her and get her to come back. But obviously the connection is dodgy. That was interesting, the sort of metallic gargling that she got into.
Yeah.
It was like straight out of the movies.
It was a robo pirate going, "Arr!"
Yes, it was. Yes. Here she comes. Hello again. Speak. Nope. Frozen again.
Speak and thou shalt be heard.
Oh, good. Yeah, that's a good.
Yeah, you know. Yeah.
We can go. Are you ready, guys?
Yeah.
I'm ready.
Okay, so I'll take you down, bring you
Okay,
back.
well, you know what?
What? I can see your lips moving.
You know what happens here. You know what happens.
Okay, I'm not sure I do.
Oh,
But
she
I'm gonna
says
do
as soon as we start recording, these problems are going to come back up again.
Oh, well,
Computers.
we'll just muddle through however we can. Okay?
Yeah, we don't have to call attention to it. Let's just have fun today.
Yep. Several clergy.
So was the Pope appealing for peace, or was he praying for peace?
And the same applies to the Kaliningrad.
Yeah, that's a big question. So what do you have to say about that, guys? Good morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are, and welcome to Global Atheist News Review, as it used to be called, which is now called Views on the News. So we have a panel of interesting people again. This includes Guy Otten from Manchester, UK, David Orenstein from Manhattan, USA, Dr. Ty Wells from Tennessee, USA, Dread Pirate DP Higgs from British Columbia, Canada, and if she's receiving us, Tercia Duplessis from South Africa, but she has a connection problem. She'll join us when she can. Okay, guys.
Can you guys hear?
So the news that I'd like you to comment on starts with our favorites, the Taliban, who have quietly stopped contraceptives from being sold to women in Kabul and other parts of Afghanistan. They've ordered the pharmacies and drugstore centers to no longer stock them.
I had no idea they even had them there. That's new.
Well, there you go. Yeah, they have, but it's now stopped.
Right.
Because, of course, it's suddenly become haram. Maybe it always was, but they're only enforcing it now.
Well, I mean, I read that they regard contraception as a Western conspiracy to reduce the Muslim population. I don't know if that was them. But I mean, the thing is that this is fully consistent with their misogynist,
of course,
philosophy.
Yeah,
informed by both their religion and I fear their culture as well.
Yeah.
You
And
must.
it's really bad news for Afghan women, coming
Yes.
on top of all the other oppressions and restrictions they suffer.
Absolutely, and they all have very large families traditionally. But you may be
Right.
pleased to hear that although the price has doubled, the contraceptives are still available on the black market because they've never been able to regulate them. They've never been able to track their import even. So there you go.
You know, and I was thinking about this today, one of the visceral experiences of being a woman in this modern time is waking up and asking yourself the question, what was it that I could have done yesterday that I can't do anymore today? And always having that bit of anxiety that you wake up with, or the next week or the next month, and realizing that so many decisions that you've had and decision-making power that you used to wield is marginally either being moved around or taken away without your direct input or say. Very frustrating.
I just want to say something else that really enforces with me the inability of obviously Muslim men to just get into the shoes of just women, because contraceptives are not only used to prevent women falling pregnant. I mean, I'm going into my later years now, and my mom still uses contraceptives to prevent hot flushes. There are very definite health benefits. Contraceptive use is not only about preventing pregnancy. There's so many prevents strokes. It has such. It's a health issue. It's not about contraceptive. It's not only about preventing women falling pregnant. So it's just maybe if we can get something that could make the Taliban men feel what hot flushes are like, they'll think twice.
What I think would be good is if you weaponized, menstrual cycles, and forced them onto men half the time. You take away this, we are no longer having the periods. It's going to be men, and now men are going to have to have them once a month. Then we'd be like, you know what, let's figure this thing. We'll figure that out real quick.
But then the theology would change where only men could take the medicine. Because women are still. I mean, one thing that is a hallmark of this show, and I've been on this show for a couple of months now, is, the hits just keep on coming.
They certainly do.
And it's been this way. We're talking about it now in the 21st century, as if these archaic views of the world have any semblance on our modernity. Now, I'm not saying people can't have religious faith or be spiritual, but every time you have an organized faith, it's typically men, and it's typically telling women and children what they can and cannot do, and trying to legislate, or by the end of a gun and by the end of a bullet, tell you what you can and cannot do and what your morality is going to be.
Yep, absolutely. Guys, I'm sure I'll get your agreement if I suggest that Tercia looks very fetching in her spooky light.
From deepest, darkest Africa.
Yeah.
That's it.
All the way from deepest Africa.
Yeah, well,
not surprising that there's a lot of parallels between what we see in religion and what we see in like authoritarianism, or even a lot of politics, because it's run by the same groups of people, which should, one, inform us of like what religion actually is. It's just a process that was made by us, and two, hopefully take away some of the the mysticism and authority that we give to religion, but also let us realize that if we are making this is just a system by our design, we can improve our politics so that they are better serving for the people that they govern. Because right now it's squarely biased for like certain groups that unnecessarily marginalize and pick on other groups just so they can have a pecking order. It's
So Tercio, if you step outside, be careful, because you might meet a white guy and have to say, Dr. Livingstone, I presume?
And I'll ask him if he's brought some contraceptives. Because it's a thing, they also, because of although the medication is available, because of indoctrination, young girls fall pregnant by the age of 16 very often, because they're too embarrassed to go to the clinic to get the necessary contraceptives, because you're not a good girl if you engage in premarital or extramarital sex.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all about controlling women. So, it's moving to Germany. Some time ago, 2 Afghan brothers who had found their way to Germany were accused and subsequently charged with murdering their sister because they disapproved of her lifestyle. And the case has now got to the stage of being sentenced. In the meantime, the victim, a 34-year-old mother of 2, was found buried several weeks after going missing from her home in Berlin. And the videos of the CCTV showed her brothers boarding a train, dragging a heavy suitcase believed to have contained her body.
Oh, jeez.
So the judge has now sentenced the brothers to life in prison for murdering their sister.
And the children?
I don't know. I have no information.
Was this under a religious pretext?
Well, it was under
Must have been.
not being willing to submit to the control of the brothers who came from Afghan and found themselves in Germany. So you can draw your own conclusions.
Was anything in the court case indicated that their motive was religiously based?
Only that they disapproved of her lifestyle.
Okay. There's an interesting parallel. There was a case in Canada, I can't remember if it was Toronto or Montreal. This is about 12 years ago, where a girl was killed by, we've talked about this before, by her brother and her father. And the way it was spun on the Canadian CBC, Canadian Broadcasting Corporation News, omitted any mention of the religious aspect of it, which was that she had refused to wear a hijab. So they've taken the religious component out of this story and made it something else. And that's why I was wondering about this German case, if that was the same thing that they did there to sort of...
Politically incorrect. I presume that if you say that there was a strong religious component, then you'd be branded anti-Muslim or Islamophobic. That's right.
Right.
We were talking before the show that this type of being very careful what we say. We should be careful. We should be respectful. We should be considerate. But we shouldn't be so careful that we mislabel things for what they are.
Absolutely.
I mean, if and it actually makes me a little bit angry because the motive was religion. There's no two ways about it.
According to the UN, 9,000 women and girls a year are killed through honor killings.
Yeah.
And this is essentially an honor killing, right? You're not living the lifestyle of our heritage, more specifically our faith, and you're going to pay the ultimate price for disobeying not only male authority but religious authority. and and according to the UN, it's about 9,000 women a year are killed through some form of honor killing, whether it's father or brother or something like that, and it happens in traditional, families, Abrahamic families, but because of migration and immigration, these things happen everywhere. Because you don't just physically move your body and not bring all of your culture with you.
Yeah, and you're only talking about the ones that are reported, aren't you?
Right, exactly. That's the other thing. So that number might be, a hat, double. Who knows?
Probably triple.
Yeah,
maybe triple.
Yeah.
Then you haven't even taken into account the killing of gay people and trans people for
right.
One thing I was going to mention,
or not as much Islamic as the other people. It's a shame.
One thing I was going to point out in response to what Tercia said was that while it's important to respect the right of people to hold beliefs that are not ours, nobody has a right not to be offended. And that's what the problem ends up being, is that when you take out the religious component of a story, which is essentially a religious story, you embolden people to act in these unsavory ways by essentially saying, well, we don't want to offend you by calling it what it is. So, carry on. We'll just call it something else.
Right.
So it's pretty obvious to all of us that the brothers were trying to control their sister because they disapproved of her lifestyle, and the only missing word is Islamic.
Yeah, but this surely is one of the big points. How much of it is Islam and how much of it is the culture, and how much of that culture and Islam are sort of mutually reinforcing or informing. Those are the questions I think, in all fairness, we should try to understand, because not all Muslims do this.
Right. The ones that are exposed to other cultures and act less as their book dictates tend to be better. And we see that both in Christianity as well. When you see, for example, people saying, hey, you know what, gay people are okay, my friend's gay, and I love Jesus. That person's not acting like a Christian. A Christian would be the person who's finding those people, killing them because they're dishonoring God by their existence. Know that culture, when you interact with a lot of people and you have a well-informed culture, a healthy culture, one that evolves, those tend to push you towards the progressive attitudes and make you more inclined to interact with people in a progressive, compatible way, like in a global context. When you have this one dogma, this one ideology, that forces you into those little holes or echo chambers where you do kill your family when they offend you, or your imaginary friend. It's really, really unfortunate.
And the trend with that is, and that you find, is that the marriage of secular democracy gives you that diversity. It builds your ability to do science clearly. It gives you your ability to see others more equally. It de-emphasizes tribalism and difference, and emphasizes a more commonality. And that's something really important, is that, and that's why we're shocked when we have Germany secular democratic, and many of the countries we're all living in are secular democracies for the most part. And so when these things happen, it's like grafting on these older traditions, regardless of the faith tradition, that are so out of sync with the modern world. Because not only are they horrific for the person who's sadly killed, but what does it say about the people who are embedded in doing this because they think they're doing the right thing?
Yeah. Well, we're lucky enough to live in moderate countries, but Afghanistan is not famous for that at all.
No.
And we have to be careful, too, to not be able to have people say, well, I can't help it. That was the way I was raised.
Yeah.
That is just not an excuse anymore.
Right.
Trying to separate religion from culture. Well, can you do it? Can you not do it? It doesn't matter.
Right.
Religion is a choice. And to persist in a culture that you find reprehensible, well, you make a choice to get out of it. But if you choose to proceed and live your life in a manner which is consistent with the way you were raised, you're making a choice, because nobody is living in isolation. We're not living in islands anymore where nobody communicates. Everybody knows that there's a Western world. Everyone knows that there's an Islamic world. You know, like it's not like we're completely isolated from one another and don't have the opportunity to even make a choice because we don't see any other options.
Dread, what you're saying is right, but we also have to watch out because all we've done was make more islands. So now we have Fox News, now we have Reddit, now we have
I agree.
We need to be careful that we can lock ourselves into these really small microcultures that were made for online by people who don't have our best interests and are more interested in selling us dog food commercials than they are making us better people. We have to make sure that we keep our culture doors open and be exposed to bad ideas and be willing to be offended. It's a good thing for you.
And not be silent either. We want people to be more vocal. So moving to another country that is not famous for being tolerant, Iran. They have a promising chess player, one of the world's most promising chess player, a woman called Sarah Kardem, 25 years old, and she played at an international tournament and decided, in solidarity with the protest movements currently going on in Iran, not to wear a headscarf, thinking that the worst that could happen to her would be she might get a warning. Instead, she has been pretty much banned from returning to Iran. There are arrest papers waiting for her, so she's now in exile in southern Spain, fortunately with her husband and one-year-old son who had attended the tournament with her, but she's asked the BBC not to reveal her precise location because of worries that there may be repercussions even at distance from Iran.
Well, in this case, I would like to say what I wanted to say last week when I didn't join the show. I'm following sort of the social profile of an Iranian-born American girl called Ariana Jasmine, and she has David Smalley show twice now, and she's actually illustrated that in the case of the Iranian protests, and I think this might be one of those cases, social media has actually helped to save people's lives, because there has been famous musicians or well-known actors in Iran who have been arrested, who have been sentenced to death, and because of their names being mentioned on social media, the death sentences have been repealed, and some of them have even been released from prison. And I think this is one of those cases. And the other thing that we must forget, that this is no longer about wearing a headscarf or not wearing a headscarf, because when you choose not to wear the headscarf, you're making a very profound statement that that sends a very powerful message about what you stand for and what you stand against, and it's not a small thing, you know. So follow the people who are on social media mentioning the names of people like this chess player and other people in Iran who are in jail as we speak and who are being tortured and might be given death sentence.
Thanks to Tertia's work on this. That woman will be appearing, hopefully, on our Free Thought Hour show next month.
Oh, bravo.
Good.
Excellent. You know, I wonder if perhaps this woman did this deliberately, you know, because if she had done this and her husband and child were not with her, she would have never probably seen her husband and child again. I'm wondering if maybe she took the stand, which she probably would wanted to do anyway. But now she's, you know, an international refugee with some status, and she's made the news, and this gives her a chance to, in a sense, start over, not in a repressive place. I mean, if I was given that same circumstance, and I had this is like during the Soviet era, if you got out, you know, and you played a sport outside of the Soviet Union, you tried not to go back. So this might be the same thing.
David, I only reason why I disagree
Baryshnikov.
with that is because she has extended family that still lives there, and we don't want to make them targets.
Yeah.
And there's still Muslims even in the place that she's at now. And when Iran makes like a declarative statement like their arrest records are there, it's not so much a travel issue. It's sort of a declaration that it's open season on this person.
Right.
Anyone who's nearby, who's with us, make a demonstration, make a stand. And now she's made herself a global enemy to basically a population of people who aren't good critical thinkers, who could use that as an opportunity to move up in their God's eye.
Yeah, and who have a long memory. I mean, look what just happened to Salman Rushdie.
Yeah, she's made herself a target, even a distant one. But the thing is, on the other side of that coin, she may also have raised the profile of the problem with Iran, and may be able to help it from that point of view. Moving to Pakistan.
Oh, can I make one quick thing about that? I'm sorry. I just wanted to say one last thing. Hijab is supposed to be optional. Hijab is supposed to be a choice. So my sister is Muslim, and the one things that she gets really upset when people approach her and ask her about her headscarf is, I'm choosing to wear this. I'm not being forced to. And so to have a situation where you can't choose not to completely disregards the entire purpose of what hijab is supposed to do in the first place or represent. It's a choice by the women. So the fact that we can see that it's actually enforced in this regard completely turns the entire idea of hijab on its own head. Even if you read like the scripts for where this is supposed to come from. So they're not doing themselves a favor making Islam look better by forcing this on women.
Because it may only be a choice in certain branches of Islam.
Exactly. And the thing is, there are actually 4 different kinds of headgear: the shanjor, the hijab, the burqa, and the hijab. So, and there are different degrees of concealing a woman's face and identity.
Absolutely. And in Canada, that's been a bone of contention, hasn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
You're familiar with David Rand's campaign against laws that have been produced in Quebec.
Right. Yeah.
Also,
Bill C-21.
If it's absolutely mandatory, why doesn't God just make people grow headscarves? You could have solved this problem a long time ago.
You're saying something reasonable, Ty. I'm sorry.
Oh, my bad. I'm sorry.
Did
I offend you? I apologize. That's my fault.
So we've tried to move on to Pakistan, where a mob lynched a person. He'd been arrested by police on blasphemy charges, but this mob attacked the police station, grabbed him, and then lynched him.
So they got him out of jail to lynch him?
He wasn't actually jailed at that time, but he was in the police station. So they grabbed him. Nice fellows, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, when the police are intimidated by the mob, that's not a very stable place to be.
Oh, indeed.
When it comes to, I just always wonder, why can't God see to his own punishment for blasphemers? Why does God, the creator, almighty creator of the universe, rely upon other people to punish those who blaspheme against him? I mean,
he's lost his omnipotency. That's the thing. He's now got impotency.
Well, what do they say? Blasphemy is a victimless crime, right?
Wow, that's good. I love that. That's so good. Why have I not heard before?
Okay, moving over to Bangladesh. Authorities said that the nation has withdrawn 2 new school textbooks because protests from Islamic groups were incensed by the new curriculum that recognizes transgender identities, same-sex relationships, and secular science. And one of the books that's been withdrawn includes Darwin's Origin of the Species. So what do you think of that?
Well, I
Sounds
don't
like
think
Florida.
to say secular science is redundant, right? Because there is no such thing as religious science, right? That's not a valid inquiry.
Florida. Yeah. Yeah, there's just science. And
There's
if
just
it's
science,
done
yeah.
right, right.
Yeah.
It doesn't come in flavors.
Right.
Well, exactly, and that's the whole thing between intelligent design, teaching the controversy. If you're just going to make shit up, just call it what it is.
Right.
Don't
And there
call
is
it
no
science.
controversy.
You
Even the idea of saying teaching the controversy, the reality is there is no controversy.
Yes.
Correct.
There's no debate. 99.999% of people who study evolutionary biology agree in that natural selection is not even a theory, but a law, a scientific law that holds up through nature.
Third law of biology.
Right. Exactly.
At this point, I'd like to draw attention to some little short videos I've been making on our channel. And the latest one, it takes a clip from a debate. No, not a debate. It was a Christianity book promotion. That's what it really was. But it featured Michael Behe, Stephen Mayer, and what's his name? Lennox. I can't remember his first.
John Lennox.
Is it? Yeah, John Lennox. Fancy me forgetting that name. Anyway, I've made a little video. I'm going through this. It's an hour and a half long, but I'm going through this, refuting it at various stages. So I've got 4 minutes into it so far, but take a look. It's featured on the channel at the moment.
As far as Bangladesh banning On the Origin of Species, I can only say that maybe that's not such a bad idea in the sense that I've never been able to read Darwin myself.
Oh, come on. He does a good job.
I'm just
You read Kant.
I'm reading Kant
No,
right now.
Yeah, and you don't like
That's
that.
hard.
But you know what? You don't
Actually,
have to read Darwin to understand natural selection. Since 1859, there have been a lot of proponents who have been writing on this and investigating and observing and doing the molecular work as well as the fossil work. That Darwin is just the starting point.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I think Tertia is trying to be ironic again, I think.
Yeah.
I'm actually you can learn about everything about and understand evolution by just going onto YouTube. You don't need to ban Darwin if you don't want people. Well, they shouldn't. They should actually force people to read Darwin. Then they'll stop understanding science immediately. They'll have to ban YouTube if they want to prevent their children from learning about evolution, because there are so many sources that even I can understand.
I just had an idea. They should actually force people to read the Bible, because once you read it, I mean, that's really what turned me off it. I actually read it, and so maybe that's the answer, is to turn people off by actually forcing them to read it.
But give them some critical thinking first, because
of course.
I could do that in 3rd grade and believe everything and say, well, I read it in 3rd grade and go away with it. Let me read it after I finish like a college lecture class on ethics, because that's what really made me realize,
you've driven it out. Let's bring you in on this. I know you want to speak. Oh, don't tell me he's frozen. Wrong moment.
Poor timing.
But really brilliantly.
He's as frozen as a TV dinner.
Oh, I love it. There you go. You're back. You're back now, guy. You're back now, guy.
Yeah,
You're blinking.
Speak.
earlier in my life, and I couldn't read it. But in the last about 5 years, I turned to Origins of Species again. A very easy and interesting read. It is actually fascinating once you get into it.
Listen to this. It's an easy to read. Guy Otten, supported by Tyrone Wells.
No.
Believe
I must just wait another 20 years and I'll be able to read it.
No worries.
See, the funny thing is, it's a Christian who wrote the book, so like it's told with such a great preamble about like, listen, I'm sorry, this might make no sense. Just dismiss it. I just want to thank all my popes who helped me fund this project. I hope this doesn't make anyone angry. I love God. Jesus be praised. Okay, so let me talk about birds for a second.
Yeah. Sorry, folks and family. I know that this is a horrible thing. Okay. Well, staying in the region of the subcontinent, India. Now, you may remember last week we showed a clip on the news about some students surreptitiously watching on their phones a BBC documentary that had been banned by the Indian broadcasting corporations. And the reason it was banned was because it was about now Prime Minister Narendra Modi, who back in 2002 was a chief minister of the state of Gujarat. And at that time, he had some sort of a role in anti-Muslim violence. As you know, he's very strongly Hindu, and he's not condemned the Hindutva, which is the fundamentalist terrorist wing of the Hindu religion in India. But this broadcast documentary by the BBC was called India, the Modi Question. And it was shown in this country, but banned in India as hostile propaganda and anti-India garbage with a colonial mindset. So what's happened since, what makes it news this week, is the BBC offices in India have mysteriously been searched as part of an investigation by income tax authorities.
There's a correlation there, isn't there?
Well, I'm a suspicious person. I don't know what you think.
You know, we have a strong Indian community in South Africa, so maybe Mr. Mo and we're part of BRICS. So I'll just keep quiet. I won't say anything. Just now my house gets searched, so I'll just say this one.
Yeah. Okay, so it's back to the old pedophilia issue.
Oh my.
The what?
Yeah. This one is about Portugal, where it's a deeply Catholic country, as you know. And apparently they've been doing some research. That there's been an inquiry that was commissioned by the church, and it involved listening to more than 500 survivors of pedophilia by clergy. And thanks to that, they've been able to establish a much larger network of victims, at least 4,815 since 1950.
That's all?
Right, triple that.
The ones that are reported.
Right.
By a factor of 10, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Well, I want to link this topic to the next news item because I've actually, it's the one item that I've done a little bit of extra, not research, but some extra viewing on, and that's the Sam Smith and the Grammys debacle. And I actually watched, and I'll show you where the link comes in with this pedophilia business. I watched Piers Morgan giving his views on the Sam Smith and the satanic music video, and they had a trance performer, and he actually he said he finds it very ironic that the religious right finds Sam Smith's performance at the Grammys offensive, but Piers Morgan himself, as a Catholic on the program, said he finds it very offensive and it's harmful. And this trans man said he finds it very ironic that Piers Morgan, as a Catholic, can say that Sam Smith's performance was harmful and offensive, but he doesn't say anything about the Catholic Church and pedophilia. And to me, that was quite telling to me, because everybody's in up in arms, and in the Grammys, I mean, he wore that red robe like a cardinal. Yeah. I actually found that to be an indictment on the. I think it was a finger pointing in the direction of the Catholic Church, and it's so ironic that a performance. Look, I didn't like the performance, but it hasn't actually harmed anybody, whereas the Catholic Church harmed so many millions of children across the world.
Well, for those who don't know what this item is about, the performance at the Grammys by Sam Smith and Kim Petras featured them wearing red and dancing in fire, and Sam was seen wearing a hat with horns. And yes, I know. And the audience were complaining because he was glorifying Satan, and the number
but it wasn't the audience complaining. It was a couple of people, right? The audience really loved it. I watched the video. I watched the performance in the Grammys.
Yeah.
And they gave it a standing ovation. I mean, that was well done.
Yeah. I should have said the viewers complained.
Right.
Because they hit their email buttons. And the hit single was called Unholy, which is another.
What do you expect?
Yeah. So they've protested, and they're threatening to withdraw their contributions to whatever supplier of their television service they currently submit their money to.
Hey, there's something called, there used to be this thing called the equal time, or the I can't remember, the fair document. I can't remember what it was, where you had to have equal time for different thoughts. And I'm thinking about it. I didn't see the show, but my guess is probably half the performers, when they got up there, they thanked their Lord for winning.
Yeah.
Of course.
So, there's some, people are allowed to express themselves, and that's what you're supposed to do in a pluralistic society. So even if this guy was just using imagery, it's just imagery, but, people are crazy. I mean, I get pissed off when I see people, thanking their God for winning and all.
Oh, I get so angry with that. Yeah.
I don't write to anybody about it. I just think, oh my God, how crazy is that? Using that term as secular as possible.
Right. How biased are we, though? Because if they thank Satan, we'd be like, oh, okay. If someone on the Super Bowl was like, I just want to thank Satan for this, we would be like, oh, at least it's not God. Like, okay, that's refreshing. I'm actually going to have to hear that. I want to thank Beelzebub or Quetzalcoatl, or some other, finally,
just like third world. I want to thank the potato god, or Ra.
Or the flying spaghetti monster.
Exactly. Exactly.
Also, every Super Bowl guy who thanks God doesn't realize he's wearing the symbol of the God of victory, Roman God of victory, all over their bodies at the same time. It's just such a degree of
disconnection.
Yes.
Well, I can tell you, actually, it's that my dad, who has in his old age become quite a vehement and outspoken atheist. So we're on this family group on there is still very religious, and one of my cousins is regrettably, she's really ill at the moment, and she's in hospital and in and out of hospital, and every day when there's an update, somebody will say praise God and thank the Lord that there's and my dad, actually, after a week of just having these comments, he went on to the WhatsApp group, family group, and he said, he would just like to say that he's on a different, he has a different view, and he would like to thank the doctors and the nurses and the specialists who's taken such good care of her, and he wishes her all the best and hopes that she gets well soon, and best to her husband and her children. And I was actually quite astonished because it wasn't mean or nasty, but the message was definitely there that stop thanking God, because God has nothing to do with her getting better and getting excellent treatment.
If anything, he planned the sickness to happen.
Well,
right.
Yeah, and to think that any kind of intercessory prayer is on the same level as a doctor's care is absolutely crazy.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we noticed
But I just
in your language, Ben. The word.
I want to say, yeah.
I think the word crazy was going to begin with B.
Oh.
I want to go back to the people taking their money away or cancelling their television channels because of Sam Smith thing. I wonder how many people have actually stopped funding the Catholic Church when this news comes out about the pedophilia. I wonder, it would be interesting to know how many people have actually done that.
None, because it's not news. This has been going on for like generations, and it's part and parcel with the Catholic Church. How is that news anymore?
Yeah.
And we're not going to be privy to that information anyway.
Exactly. It's not like the Catholic Church is going to be on account for that.
Right.
So
priest abuse is like gun violence in America.
Right.
It's just part of the fabric of the personality of the culture.
Part of the culture.
It couldn't stay on the news for a week. Like the worst violent gun crime won't even be on the news for 3 days anymore because it's just America. That's where
there's another one coming 3 days from now.
Yep.
That's the sad thing in America.
So finishing off with a couple of short news items about the UK. These are good news items because writer and broadcaster Sandy Toksvig, she is a national treasure. She's launched a petition to remove the bishops from the House of Lords. As you may or may not know, we have 26 bishops who, thanks to Henry VIII 500 years ago, have a right to sit in judgment in our government. And she has started a petition to get rid of that, which is wonderful news. And I've signed it, and I know Guy has. And anybody else who's in the UK, please do that.
Well, as a member of the Commonwealth, can I sign as a Canadian?
I should think so. Yeah.
Send me a link.
monarch.
Well, fine too, because I think also part of the Commonwealth.
Your monarch is our monarch.
That's
So,
right. Send me a link. I'd be happy to sign it.
Great, excellent. Because she pointed out that there's only 2 countries in the world where representatives of the state religion automatically get a seat in the legislature. That is the UK and Iran. Do we want to keep that company? I think not.
Well, I mean, we actually need to abolish the House of Lords as a whole because it's not democratically elected.
Well, just get rid of the monarchy too.
All right. So
These are other issues that haven't come up in the news at the moment.
So
anyway,
it's 26 bishops, did you say?
Yeah,
26.
And all the rest are pawns?
No.
You're welcome.
Actually, we should give them an option to wear little horns coming out of their bishop hat.
Yeah, but they'd be much nicer like that. Finally,
And we do.
you may remember last week we talked about a move to get rid of masculine sexism in the church, where the prayers are all framed in terms of he and him with a capital H,
Right.
and our Father and all that sort of stuff. Well, that's moved on because it's being considered now by the Church of England. They've announced that they're going to explore some alternative words I'm boggling. Is it going to be it? Is it going to be they and them? And what will happen to the capital letters? I don't know. So is it going to be our non-gendered parent who art in heaven?
We can snicker, but I think it's silly that, God was given a penis to begin with. Like, I just think it's a really silly idea that, a bunch of men come down from the top of a mountain and we're like, he was a guy. We're all guys. It was another guy. We had conversations with the guy, rewrote the book. It's all guys all the way down. And there's a lot of toxicity that comes from,
Dr. Ty,
fathership.
You have to read Stavrakopoulos' book about the anatomy of God, because then you understand that the anatomy of God is a very old and ancient thing, and that in fact he has a very intimate history with penises and such. Francesca Stavrakopoulos, an anatomy of God. You might find.
Well said, Francesca Stavrakopoulos. Yes.
Mm-hmm. That's Stavrakopoulos.
I've met her, and I've been trying to get her on the show, and no success so far. She's very, very busy. So there you go, guys. We've got feminist theologian Mary Daly complaining that if God is male, the male is God. She's got a point, hasn't she?
Well, God has to be male, because some of the decisions.
Well, how else would you have a virgin birth, right?
Only been done by a man.
Right.
There you go. So, guys, that's it. We've run out of time here, and I'm going to thank you very much for taking part. Thank everybody for watching.
Thank you.
And I'm going to play the outro. Say bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Ramen.
Thank you.
Bye.
Right.
Several clergy
Russell was the Pope appealing for peace, or was he praying for peace?
And the same applies to the Kaliningrad.
Yeah, that's a good question.